Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About House. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, new article just came out about office market. Potentially some good news.
Okay, bring it
We're
on.
going to talk about this and why this maybe affects housing. Now we're going to point out some similarities and some things that might be pretty interesting.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the headline of the article. JLL, which is a research group, growing tenant demand, shrinking supply, point to office market stabilization. Okay, so their tenants are coming back, and the number of office spaces that are open are shrinking for some reason. We'll talk about that specifically.
Right.
Right? Okay, before though we get started, in the comments, if you tell us what you think or care about commercial real estate and how do you think it affects residential.
Right. So if you are interested in commercial real estate, tell us that. If you're not, tell us that too, because we would prefer to do videos about topics that interest you.
Yeah. Okay. The report released Wednesday points to 4 measures. Okay. There are 4 things they're looking at. An uptick of return to office mandates, which you probably heard about, right?
Right.
Growing tenant requirements. So tenants that need more space, declining sublease additions, and shrinking high-end availability as signals that the market will reach stability next year. I think that it's a signal. It doesn't mean it will.
Yeah, I think that's overly optimistic. I think it will reach stability. I just am less convinced that's going to happen next year. I think it's going to take longer.
Okay, this is what they said. This year will bring nearly 3 million employees under new return to office mandates, according to JL, with that number continuing to rise in the latter half of the year. Previously announced policies went into effect for over 1 million workers in September, and another 500,000 will be subject to such policies between this month and January, according to the report. Now, remember, the problem was that it was remote work. Yes, there's all this debt that has to be refinanced. We're going to talk about that. But the real problem was a bunch of employers said, hey, we no longer need 30,000 square feet of office space. We need 5,000. And so we're just going to go down to 5,000 and give back that 25,000 square feet. And then the landlord's like, oh, now what do I do? Because I just don't have a bunch of people beating down the door for office space, right?
Right. Not only that, but then the landlord also has to deal with tenant improvements in order to further subdivide that space to make it attractive to new tenants. And that's an added expense in an environment where the landlord maybe has to refinance the debt because their loan is coming due.
Okay. Now here's one that Juana called. She called it a few months ago or more. Conversions are helping to get rid of some of that inventory, though JLL said conversions' overall impact will be marginal. Roughly 19 million square feet of office inventory was removed from the U.S. this year. And that doesn't mean it was leased. It was not available as office space. 90% of that coming from conversions. The volume of conversions through the first 9 months of the year exceeded the full year volume in 2022. Juana, what's a conversion?
So conversion is, for example, when you take, so this is one of my favorite ones, when you take like a retail space, like where maybe a grocery store was located, and you turn that into pickleball courts. Okay, completely different use. So you've converted it from a retail to now a completely different type of space. So that's a conversion. Another type of conversion would be what's happening in New York City, where they're trying to convert some office spaces, which speaks to what Todd was just talking about, to residential. That's definitely a trend in that direction. That particular conversion is actually very expensive, but it is a possibility, and particularly in places like New York City, that may pencil. Now, that will not pencil, in other places across the country, but places like New York City, that may pencil.
Okay, meanwhile, as properties move off the market, new construction volume is hitting record lows. So just like in residential housing, there's home builders are not building anywhere near what they built historically. Okay, same thing is happening with office. During the third quarter, 1.7 million square feet of new offices broke ground across the U.S. The lowest in a decade. The new construction pipeline has declined 33.4% in the past 5 quarters. Juana, what does this look like 3, 4, 5 years from now?
Yes.
When the economy is going and all these businesses are like, hey, we need office space. We need more office space. And there's like, oh, well, we weren't building office space 5 years ago. Right. So you can't just like magically go quickly build office buildings.
Exactly. So here's the thing. This is kind of what Todd alluded to at the beginning. It's like, well, how does this play with residential? So you can kind of look at residential where builders stop building, and then you can see the amount of time that it took to get behind. It won't necessarily take the same amount of time to get behind on office space. You know that there's going to be obviously some variety there, but you can see the same type of pattern, right? And I know the Crash Bros love patterns, so I'm giving them one. I'm giving them a bone. So there you go. So they love patterns. So you're going to see that. Now, how long is that going to take? You know, I think Todd's probably right. I think it'll take about 3 to 5 years before we're going to all of a sudden wake up and go, oh my goodness, you know, office space is extremely valuable because we are short office space. And office space is actually harder to build than single family homes, because office space, you can't just build it anywhere, right? It needs to be built around other types of, around other businesses. It's a much more expensive endeavor than single family homes. There's a lot more to it. You know, you've got environmental impact statements, you've got economic studies, you've got all kinds of things that go into that. Plus, it's a much more expensive product, right? You know, as opposed to single family homes, and it takes more investors. It's just so much harder and longer to put up an office building from that perspective. Now, that's not everywhere, right? So if you're building office space, maybe on vacant land along a beltway, that might go up really fast, i.e. in Las Vegas. That's what we do here. So that works really well. But if you're in a more densely populated environment, if you're in an urban environment, that might be much more difficult. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Most office space in Vegas is pretty much around the beltways.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The downtown doesn't have a ton of, it's like no one's downtown. We don't have a city center with massive office buildings like San Antonio or Dallas or Los Angeles, New York City. We don't have that. Our office space is basically all over the place.
Right. So our downtown office space tends to be things like courthouses, FBI building, that kind of thing.
Yeah. During the first 9 months of the year, only 205 distressed properties, this is the whole country, traded hands. A fraction of the 309 traded during the same period in 2009, and close to 1,000 in 2010, according to data from MSCI Real Assets. So obviously 2010 was a big year for commercial, right? We don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of years. There's a bunch of debt that has to be refinanced, meaning when you buy an office building, Wanda, you don't get a 30-year note, right?
No, you don't. So your note is anywhere between 6 to 10 years. That's kind of where the range. But what's happening is, and something that I alluded to actually a couple of videos ago, is that banks are they're trying to help out the borrower, because they really don't want those assets back, because obviously they're going to get less money for them. So what they're doing is they're doing these loan extensions. Now, these loan extensions cost money. They're not doing them out of the goodness of their heart. So what's happening is the borrower's having to put money into the kitty in order to get a loan extension. These loan extensions are anywhere from a few months to 12 months, so they're not long-term loan extensions. And what's happening is the borrowers are saying, hey, you know what, I've got a tenant, and this tenant is paying me enough rent for me to cover my mortgage and the loan extension, and I'm going to just kind of hope and pray that it'll all work out in the next few months, and then I can refi and make it work. So we'll see kind of how that pans out. I think that they're just kicking the can down the road. I don't think that's going to pan out for a lot of them, and I don't blame them for trying. I mean, you know, we would all try if we were in their position.
This is the quote Juan is referring to. Lenders wary of adding underperforming real estate to their balance sheet, so they don't want to take back the properties. Okay, have thus far offered loan extensions in hopes that financial conditions will improve. But with interest rate relief nowhere in sight, lenders may be less amenable to that solution in the future. What I think they're doing is these building owners are trying to go find investors and say, hey, we will give you a deal. We've got a building, it's $20 million building. If you'll give us $2 million, we'll give, instead of giving you a 10% share of the building, we'll give you a 15% share of the building. You'll make a contribution to a capital contribution, and you'll buy 15% of our building from us, but only at $2 million. They'll use that $2 million to try to get through this thing,
right?
You know, to get to the point where they can get the people back in there and make money again. There's no real downside to them because if they lose the building goes away, then they lose all their investment. They're going to lose everything because they're right. They don't have enough equity to make up for what the bank would take it back for.
Right. So the way that works is they would take that $2 million then and put it, if you will, as a down payment to reduce the principal balance so that when they're refinancing at a higher interest rate, their payment still makes sense. You know, the thing that I would like to see is some flexibility on the part of government. And what do I mean by that? So let me explain. So let's say that you have a building that you purchased for $300 million. That building is worth $100 million today. If that building gets foreclosed, it will sell for $100 million, right? You're paying property taxes on $300 million. If the building gets foreclosed, those new people will pay property taxes on $100 million.
Probably.
Now, what I would like to see is the taxation bodies, usually it's the county, I would like for them to give a tax abatement, not a tax credit, not anything forgiveness, but an abatement. That means that they're deferring that tax, right? So I would like to say, hey, look, we'll split it with you, right? You're at 300, it would sell for 100. Let's go ahead and do this. We will do a property tax for you at 150 million. That reduces the amount of your monthly payment, right? And the rest of it, we will put on the back burner, and you can start making payments on that in 5 years or whatever, right? Down the road. It goes with the property, so if you sell the property, then that has to be cleared at the sale. But otherwise, you know, it's all good. This would be a way to help the owners of these buildings make ends meet until they can refinance at more favorable rates where the whole thing makes sense. I have not seen taxation authorities do that. Let me know in the comments if you've seen that. If you are somebody that has influence over such governmental bodies, let us know if you think that there's an appetite for something like that out there. I think that would make a lot of sense. I think that would be good stewardship of the taxpayer dollar because obviously you're getting more property tax on 150 million than you would on 100 million if the building was foreclosed. And I think it obviously it helps the borrower. It's a win-win situation all the way around.
Yeah, exactly. Now, so here's another quote from the article. This is pretty interesting. Net charge-offs and delinquency rates for bank-held commercial real estate loans increased in the second quarter, with all major property types showing greater distress, according to TREP. Meanwhile, MSCI is tracking 1.4 trillion worth of commercial real estate debt set to mature between 2024 and 26. Now, remember, this is not the entire U.S. Mm-hmm. This is in select markets. Mm-hmm. That's what's interesting about this. They're still building in Dallas. They're still building in San Antonio. They're still building in Houston. They're still building in Miami. They're still building in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. We have very low vacancy rates here, and everything, almost all types of commercial real estate in Nevada is fully. Where are we talking we're talking about massive cities that have had a lot of people leave, that the sucking sound of people that have left. Okay, it's 6 cities: San Francisco, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Boston, New York City. Those are the cities that are having the biggest problem right now. Okay. Now there's some people going back to New York City, but that doesn't mean they're going back to their office. That just means they said, hey, I'm going to go live back in the city, but I'm not necessarily going into the office full time. Right. And that's the problem. So but remember, just like it lagged, it took a while to get here. It could lag going back too, because just because somebody leases office space doesn't mean they immediately are paying a bunch of money. They may get 2 months free and the whole thing to go back in there.
Sure.
So it's really, the thing to remember is when you think about, well, Todd, why does this affect residential housing? Well, we did a video on this. It doesn't really affect like commercial real estate, not the borrowing side of it, the lending side, nor the disposition side of it have really anything to do. They more affect the banks and maybe the local economies.
Right. And it doesn't necessarily affect the same lending institutions that lend to homeowners, right? Because you've got banks that specialize in commercial real estate, and that's not the same lending institutions that are lending on the residential side. So they're completely different. Very seldom do they overlap.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What's going on out there? Let us know what's going on where you are. What's commercial real estate like? Lots of empty office buildings coming back to life, what's happening, what other types of commercial real estate are you seeing out there, and what's happening with them? For example, warehouse, retail, what's happening with those? Let us know. We're always interested in what's happening in your neck of the woods. We welcome all your real estate related comments. If you are thinking of buying or selling anywhere in the country, please consider using our services. Remember to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.